Hello everybody, this is Noah with Learn Meta-Analysis, and recently I was asked to do a full demo example of creating a coding form and then actually extracting data for a systematic review or meta-analysis. So I thought this was a great idea. We will go through this process from start to finish using one particular study just for data extraction purposes, and hopefully this will help explain how this process works. So we're going to start with setting up our coding form, and I'm going to use Google Sheets. And the reason is because, frankly, I typically use Google Sheets when I am first setting up my coding form. I use this quite a lot. So we're going to use the actual process that I would use when I am getting this started. So let's start with the beginning. The first thing that I always put as my first column is the study. There's so many, so I want to put a couple caveats here as we get started. First, each column is going to be a variable for data that you're extracting, but what those variables are is going to totally depend on your field. So I can't just say, use this, use this, use this. Like, I can't tell you what your variable should be. I can tell you what it should be. You should have a label for each study, and you should have the effect size relevant information included. So we're going to cover those for sure. But the rest of these variables I'm going to include are very specific to my field. Okay, so how do you decide what variables to use? Well, they should be driven by theory in your area. At least that's the way it works in my field, is we have theory-driven reasons why we think something may or may not moderate the overall effect. And so that is really the guiding pillar for the variables in our study. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and continue here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I make this label called study for my first variable. Second, I like to record what the actual comparison is, and I just call that comparison. And in this column, what I'm going to do is write down what was actually being compared. Now, the example that we're going to use for this video is we're doing a meta-analysis looking at the influence of including a virtual character on students' learning compared to not including a virtual character on students' learning. So essentially, we want to know if including that virtual character really helps people learn or not. So we're going to have our study column. We're going to have our comparison column. Next, let's think about some characteristics of the virtual character that might influence how well it teaches or how well people learn from it. So we actually have a theoretical framework for this. I'm not going to dive really far into it now, but one of those levels is at the very top level of like, what does this character actually look like? Is it human-like or is it non-human-like? So we're going to put that here. So I'm going to put character type. And then when I go down here, I'm going to put a drop-down menu. And I need to remember how to do this because it's been a little while since I added a drop-down menu. So I need to find it. Give me just a second. There we go. It's under Insert, drop-down menu. So over here, my first option is going to be human-like. My second option is going to be non-human-like. Or I'm just going to say non-human. And then I'm going to click Done. Okay, so now you can see that this is there and I can select it. Now the next thing that I do is in real life, I would have more than one comparison for a meta-analysis, right? So I typically drag this all the way down my sheet as far as I think I need to go. So that way it's already pre-populated and they're all identical. So next we might have the type of voice that the character used, or actually let's go with gestures. So we'll do if it had gestures or not, or I'm just going to go to a high level of animation, and that's what I'm going to call it. So then I'm going to go again to Insert Dropdown. My first one is going to be gestures. Second will be facial animation. Add another item. We will say general movement. That would be like walking around the screen. And we'll say all of the above. And we'll say static character because sometimes they don't move. Okay, then I hit done and I'm going to extend that down to here. Okay, I'm going to do one more, which is going to be voice. And I'm going to add another drop-down menu here. And I am going to say human for a human recording, text-to-speech for anything that's synthetically generated, and then I'm going to add one more of not reported. Now, generally speaking, I find that it's good practice to just include not reported as one of my variable options for every single category that has a drop-down menu. I just didn't remember to do that until right now. So what I'm going to do is first extend this down. And then I'm going to go back to this one and I'm going to edit it. And I'm going to add one more item that says not reported. And I'm going to click done. And I'm going to hit apply to all. And then over here, I'm going to do the exact same thing. Add one more item, say not reported. I'm going to say done. I'm going to say apply to all. Okay, so now I have my drop-down menus. Now, these are what I would consider my potentially moderating variables, or depending upon what it is you're coding, they might just be descriptive for you. So you can have as many of these as you need, as many as is relevant for your meta-analysis. In some fields, it's really important that these are theory-driven, and so in that case, you might have considerably fewer. In other fields, they like to do exploratory analyses, so there might be more. So for now, for the sake of getting this video done in a realistic time frame, I'm going to just move on and pretend like those are the only things that are important. Now, the next thing that is important is our effect size information, because I'm going to code this as if it were a meta-analysis. So actually, you know what we'll do? We'll simultaneously record this for meta-analysis purposes and systematic review purposes, just so that you can see the example. Just know that this isn't typically how I would do it in real life. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to label this systematic review results impact on learning. Okay, and then next, I'm also going to make this just like a different color, just so you can see that this isn't necessarily like what I would normally do. So this is where we're going to record the results as though I would typically do in a systematic review. And then in the next columns, I'm going to record what I would typically record in a meta-analysis so that we can calculate effect sizes. So the first thing that I like to do is this label, exp_mean. To me, that means the experimental group. That is what I am trying to find the effects on. So this would be the virtual character group. I then do exp_sd for standard deviation and exp_n for the sample size. I do the same thing for control, and I've always abbreviated it pretty consistently the same way. I don't know why. It doesn't have to be that. It can be literally anything that you want, anything that makes you happy. Like you could have magic blue frog mean, magic blue frog standard deviation, magic blue frog sample size, and then something different for the others. It really doesn't matter as long as you can keep it straight in your mind. And that's why I've always done experimental and control, because I always know what my experimental group is and I always know what my control group is. And then last but not least, I always like to add a notes column because sometimes you find things that are confusing or that you need to just look at later or you need to consider later. So that said, this took, I don't know, maybe 6 minutes, and we already have our really basic coding form set up here. I will say, setting up your coding form is really, really important. You shouldn't just wing it like I am in this video. Every moderator, potentially moderating variable and everything that you want to record, you need to be intentional about why you're doing this, and this should be very, very well thought out. The only reason I can come up with these off the top of my head is because I've worked in the area in virtual characters for like the last 15 years, and I know what's important in that area. But if this is an area that is new to you, whatever you're coding or whatever you're working on, it's really important that you take really good time and energy into designing a really effective coding form and making sure that you have the appropriate drop-down menus, etc. So let's go ahead and jump into a study here. So what I'm going to do, or what I'm going to try and do, is I'm going to try and make this half my screen. Okay, I'm actually going to switch these because I feel like this is how it should actually be. I like to have my reading stuff on the left. Wow, what did I do? Okay. I like to have my reading on the left and my recording on the right. So I just have one of my old papers here. We are going to just review this paper. I'm going to show you where I get the information from, and I'm going to show you how I'm going to record it. And I will also note that this is going to be a best case scenario in terms of data reported. I know that it will be because it's my own paper, but I will also show you when there will be problems that you may encounter when you're doing this on your own with other studies. So study. This is a single authored paper from 2017. So I'm just going to put Schrader 2017 as my name. This is one other thing. You definitely don't have to do this. It's just something I like to do. First, I like to freeze this top row. I don't remember how to do that off the top of my head, but I know there's a way. View, freeze, first row. Okay, second thing I like to do is I like to change the background color and the text color. I change the text color to white and I change the background color to black. And this just helps me visually know what, like, separate out the column or the variable from my actual data that I'm inputting. Okay, so next I need to know what the actual comparison was. So what I would do is scroll down to the methods, because that's where this would be reported in my field. And we are going to see. So I'm going to scroll over here. Let's see. There's participant information. We're going to come back to that. Okay, so we see that people were randomly assigned to either the control group or the experimental group. Great. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, here's our two conditions that we had. So we had a virtual character compared to no virtual character. So I'm just going to put, they're actually called pedagogical agents. So I'm going to put PA versus no PA because that's typical abbreviations that are used in the field. Okay, so now I'm going to look at character type. Well, I can see my character right here. It is human-like. So I'm going to say human-like. Now I'm going to go over to the next row. Animation. We need to find out if this character was animated. So we're just going to read what it says here. Sorry, I'm skimming because this was a long time ago and I do not remember. Let's see, was this character animated? Okay, the agent did not move or gesture. However, it did have lip sync. So what do we want to choose for animation here? This is where it's very, very, very important that you have clear definitions of your different constructs within each one of these variables. For example, I think you could make the case that this did or did not have facial animations because it did have lip sync. So if you clearly define this as something where as facial animations can be lip sync only, that's okay. However, if I were doing this, I would probably not consider lip sync to be facial animations because it's not showing emotions like I would typically think of with facial animations. So for this case, I'm going to actually put static character, but this is something that needs to be very, very explicitly reported in your table. So you should have a table that lists all of the variables and the definitions for each category. Sorry, I should have mentioned that in the beginning. Okay, so how about the character's voice? I did see that as I was skimming through. Okay, the narrative was presented by a recorded human male voice. So for voice, we are going to choose human. Now I'm going to scroll over here. Okay, so now we want to know, for the systematic review, if we were doing a systematic review, we would want to know what the results were for the impact on learning of comparing these two conditions. So let's scroll down and get to the results. Okay. Interesting. Sorry, I'm saying interesting because I apparently had a typo and I dislike that I had a typo. Okay, so funny what you find when you look at things 10 years later, right? Okay, so this says independent t-test was conducted to see if existing differences between learning outcome scores. The result of the test showed no significant differences between groups. Okay, so this is what I would want to record if I were doing a systematic review. I would, and this is just my style of writing and the way that my brain works, you can record as much or as little information as you feel necessary. But for me, I would say no significant differences between groups. And then I would just copy paste in the t-test result right there. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to format this and do wrapping so that it doesn't overlap because that would drive me crazy. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is for a meta-analysis, we would be recording the results of the statistical tests. I'm sorry, not the statistical tests, the descriptive statistics. So here you can see we have this nice table that tells us the mean and standard deviation of the control group and the experimental group. So the control group is listed first, so that's the way I'm going to write this down. So it says 15.64, 4.51. We're going to have to go back in the paper to find the sample size, so we'll do that in a minute. The experimental mean was 15.61, and something I always do, I always like quadruple check this when I type it in because it's very, very easy to make a mistake here and it can very much impact your results. So it's very important that you make sure that your numbers are correct when you move them over. So I've got the means and standard deviations moved over, but as you can see, the sample size is not reported right here specifically. So let's go back up in the paper and find that sample size. Here we go. So we had 33 in the control group and we had 36 in the experimental group. And we're done. Okay, so that seems really simple, right? That seems really simple. And like I said, this was a best case scenario. This had our mean standard deviation and sample size right there, very explicitly reported for us. So let me give you a couple scenarios of what else can happen when you are trying to record data for a meta-analysis. So number one, let's go back down to the results. Let's say that this table is missing. The only thing we have is this t-test result. Well, we can actually estimate effect sizes from t-test results, and we can do that from a variety of different statistical tests. There's a bunch of different calculators online that can help you make these estimates. Another thing might be sometimes they report the standard error instead of the standard deviation. But these things are statistically related to one another, and we can do some computations to calculate the standard deviation from the standard error, and then we can make sure that we record the standard deviation here. Now, this is an example of, actually both of these things are examples of when I would use this notes column. So for example, if I had to estimate the effect size from the t value or an f value or something like that, I would make a note about that and I would record what that t value was. Similarly, if I had to estimate the standard deviation from the standard error, I would make a note here that I estimated the standard deviation from the standard error, and I would record what that standard error was. And the reason is so that later, if I need to double check it, it's very easy for me to do that. So there's a bunch of other things that can go wrong when you're looking at these results. So for example, one common problem that you may run into is maybe they only report the results of an ANCOVA rather than an ANOVA, and so the ANCOVA will have some covariate in there that makes it more complicated. So there's a number of things that can make this more challenging, but I found that recently, I shouldn't say recently, like for studies that have been published within the last 5 to 10 years, reviewers are pretty great about trying to make sure that all of these types of descriptive statistics are reported, at least in my field, which again is education, educational technologies, that sort of field. And so there's been a lot of efforts towards making sure we have more transparent reporting. And so this hasn't been as much of an issue with recent papers as it can sometimes be with older papers. Sometimes with older papers, you'll maybe only see a t-test result, or maybe you'll only see a p-value. It really just depends on the field and the paper to how well things are reported. But in my ideal sense, like what I hope every paper has, I hope every paper that I look at has mean standard deviation and sample size for each group super explicitly reported without any sort of covariate or anything in there. Now, I would say that's probably the case in my field, maybe 80 to 90% of the time, depending upon the subfield. But yeah, that pretty much summarizes it. So I hope this has been helpful for you guys. I know this was just a really quick example, and I made it look really easy because I'm using a paper that I know has things very explicitly reported. But that's because a lot of the nuance that comes in is going to be so paper specific that it won't really be super helpful for me to go through every single possible thing about an individual paper. Because sometimes it just comes down, you need to email the authors for data and ask for them to provide the data. So I will say that I don't necessarily have the best luck when I email authors for data. A lot of times I find the data no longer exists because the study was run 10 or 15 or 20 years ago, but it's worth a try because if you can get that data, you can include it in your analysis, and that's always great. So all right, so I hope this has been helpful for you guys as a practical applied example of setting up a coding form and extracting data from a paper. If you have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments section down below. If this has been helpful for you, please like and subscribe to help support the channel. Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.